One of the things that prompted me to contact you is I heard there was a business owner behind the Uptown Community Coalition, and I saw some of the messaging. It's like bike and walk to our businesses. Like you never hear from Uptown businesses that people should be biking and walking. All I hear is
Yeah.
resentment over the buses and the bikes. And I was like, what business is this that is telling people they should be biking and walking to them? So
Yes. So I have like, here's the thing. I have a nonprofit background, like a community building nonprofit background, but I obviously like work in the realm of for-profit business right now. And so I always have a very kind of dualistic view on these things. So even with the construction project, which we've been very like heavily involved in, my whole thing was like, we need this done. Like this street sucks. It needs to be fixed. It needs to be, reformatted. I'm not against road reconstruction at all. What was problematic for me more than like the parking, the bike lanes, and just whatever was happening with that was how the city ultimately like ended up dealing and like pushing through this project with no kind of like oversight of what had been happening in this neighborhood for the last 5 years, because construction projects are planned out years in advance, right? And so the way that this one went down, all of the meetings and like the like community outreach meetings in regards to this project were happening at the same time as when we were like holding down riots and like prevent or trying to prevent our businesses from broken into and stuff. So even for me, I attended like one meeting back then because there was just too much going on. I just had to focus on keeping my business open. And then COVID, of course, was also happening at the same time. It was just a lot going on. And so a lot of people didn't get to participate or like know what was happening. And even the conversations of people fighting about parking or bike lanes and this and that, it was because there was a lot just being decided on and a lot being done, that wasn't truly like a unified view or like a unified effort from the neighborhood. It was very segmented because we were all dealing with so much. Like people could basically only participate when they could participate or like when something was blatantly put in front of their faces. And then, all of that phase of the project was done. And then now several years pass where nothing really is communicated from the end of the city or the county to the neighborhood in regards to the project, because there really nothing is to communicate. Like at that time, they're basically just working on like getting the funds together, like putting out the RFPs for the bids, like, and getting all of that situated. So then by the time all of that gets done and now like it's time for the construction and this conversation is coming back up again, now people are reminded that this is going to be happening. And then in that time, who knows what else happened or like how else these businesses fared like in that time, which for us wasn't great. Like it's not like we went through that period of businesses closing, increase, empty storefronts, and then like we, went back up on that, like on that scale. We're still on a downward. I mean, we're just basically maybe getting to a point where like some of these spaces are starting to get filled, but we are still a largely like vacant storefront corridor, at least along Hennepin. So nothing really changed as far as like things didn't get worse and then get better. It's like we were still at a point where things were getting worse when the, project was pushed through to begin. And then so when you add major road reconstruction in front of these businesses, of course, that's going to affect us more significantly than it would have if these other things that had happened in this neighborhood hadn't happened, or if those things had been dealt with like appropriately and differently. So it was just like very much piling on all of these things that, when you really think about it, is like how is a business supposed to survive all of that? Like it's a lot. I mean, when you compare it to like what some other cities in Minnesota or even what other neighborhoods in Minneapolis have gone through, it just doesn't equate. Like it is so much more. So yeah, in terms of like the, bike thing and the walk thing, I mean, for me, it's all about like a balance of, yes, I have guests, or clients that come in from outside of the city, and I do want a place for them to park. But I actually think there's plenty of parking in Uptown. And people are probably going to be outraged at me saying that, but there's a lot of side streets. There's a lot of areas where it's still free parking. And for that matter, even the, parking that they like took away on Hennepin, they replaced it with paid parking. So it's just a matter of like, it's no longer free. But there's still parking. And, and I look at this like, what if we were downtown or somewhere else where like the parking is genuinely terrible, So I don't even look at it like it's that bad. And then as far as the biking situation, like, as a business, especially when you've gone through what we've gone through in that neighborhood in the last 5 years, if you are a like productive business owner, what you're doing is you're trying to restructure. You're trying to figure out like, what else can I do to make sure that my business stays afloat? Like, how can I restructure even the way that I direct my clients to like come to me or to like patronize me in order to like still make this work for myself? So in the last few years, I really pushed towards, more community connections, like really, really being in tune with the people in the neighborhood. And those are the people that helped, us stay afloat. So it's like, definitely both things are important, but I think as a business owner, you should want both. Like, you should care about both, because if all you're caring about is those people that drive to your neighborhood and need a place to park, then when something like this happens, or let's say like parking just, gets less or diminished for some other reason, what are you going to lean on? You need to lean on the people in the neighborhood. But if you haven't done any work, or if you haven't like supported that in any way up until then of course you're going to feel it a lot more significantly.
I've thought about this a lot. There are tens of thousands of people in the general Uptown area, like within walking distance, within biking distance. It
Yeah.
is the transit friendliest area in the entire state of Minnesota, with all the bus lines, whether it's Hennepin or Lake
Yeah.
or Lindale. And so it seems like a missed opportunity. I don't know if it's the fact that Uptown had been dominated by like chains and it was expected to like compete with Mall of America with people driving in. But like I see a future
Yeah.
with local businesses who actually cater to the tens of thousands of potential customers who are right there waiting to be brought in.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. And that's kind of, what I'm talking about with, you have to, as a business owner, like take the responsibility of outreach. Like, and what is your business outreaching to? So if like it's important, or if it just makes sense for you to be outreaching to guests who have to drive in, then are you even in the right place? I mean, what is the point of being located in a specific neighborhood if you're not going to pay any attention to what's going on in that neighborhood, or like the needs of the people in that neighborhood? So I think this kind of, has a part of this conversation is like how to like run and operate a business or something, which is something that I, do counsel people on. I mean, this is something I actually do as like a consultation business. But at the end of the day, like as a, nonprofit, or as somebody that's just like doing work in this neighborhood, I can't run other people's businesses for them. And I actually like pretty plainly like refuse to babysit other people's businesses. My whole thing is I'm all about providing people with all of the information and like access, like equitable access to everything that they, could utilize. And then after that, it's like your responsibility, And so I'm very big on that. And I think that there is a certain degree of people that like miss the mark on doing that for their business. And then they really like very heavily feel the, like repercussions of these things that are going on. And then, you have people who do that outreach and like who have that connection to the community. And maybe they're not, taking it as far as I am, like with starting a nonprofit or like doing whatever else. But there are people who understand that sometimes you just have to reformat how your business functions or what all areas your business gets involved in order to push through and become like malleable with the times. Like you have to change with the times. I think we all learned that through COVID. Like people had no choice but to learn that through COVID. But for some reason, they don't seem to apply it the same way when other things happen within their neighborhoods or around their businesses.